So, have you ever really thought about how lawyers tackle those impossible-seeming problems? You know, the ones with no obvious answer? Well, it's not some kind of magic trick, and it's not just about being good at arguing. It's a skill. It's a discipline. And honestly, it's a lot like being a detective. Okay, let's dive in and really break down what legal research is all about.
Right. Let's put you in the hot seat. A client walks in, they sit down, and they lay out a situation that is complex, it's messy, and it's totally unique. There is no chapter in a textbook for this. You can't just guess. I mean, the stakes are way too high. So, what's your first move?
You start the hunt. Simple as that. You basically become a detective. Your office? It's now the incident room. Your one and only mission is to track down the clues, the statutes, the case law, all the scholarly articles that are going to help you piece together the strongest possible case for your client.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. A hunt? In 2024? Why not just Google it? And look, it's a totally fair question. But in the world of law, a simple search engine just isn't going to cut it. Let's get into why.
Okay, so a Google search is fast, we all know that. But here's the thing, the free internet is kind of like the Wild West of information. It's actually a really dangerous misconception that you can find everything you need out there. See, anyone can publish anything online, right? There's no guarantee it's accurate, that it's quality, or that it's even up to date. Legal research, on the other hand, is methodical. It's a process that is laser-focused only on authoritative sources. It's really the difference between asking a random stranger on the street for directions and consulting an official certified map. All right, so if Google is off the table for the serious stuff, what tools does our legal detective actually use? Let's go ahead and open up that toolkit and see what's inside. At its absolute core, this is what we're talking about. Legal research isn't just about finding stuff. It's about finding the right stuff, the information that's going to build a rock-solid foundation for a legal decision. And you have to remember, in law, a weak foundation doesn't just get you a bad grade, it can literally change someone's life. So the detective's clues, they basically fall into two main categories. Think of secondary sources, things like textbooks or journal articles, as your guidebooks, right? They give you the lay of the land, they summarize the key points, and they point you in the right direction. But primary sources? Oh, that's the raw evidence. That is the law itself, the actual legislation, the Constitution, the decisions that judges have made. You use the guidebooks to find the evidence. You know, a good detective never ever works randomly. They have a process. They follow a series of very deliberate steps to make sure nothing gets missed. And legal research, it is exactly the same. It's a 5-step investigation. The key thing to see here is the logical flow. You always start with a plan. Then you go to those secondary sources, the guidebooks, to get the big picture. Once you're armed with that knowledge, you dive into the primary sources, the hard evidence. After that, and this is crucial, you have to make sure that evidence is still valid and up to date, because laws are always changing. And finally, you take everything you found and you organize it all into one coherent case file. And this pyramid is a fantastic way to picture that process. You start down at the wide base with really general background research. Yeah, maybe even a broad web search just to get your bearings. Then you move up to the secondary sources to sharpen your understanding. That leads you to the primary authority, the case law and statutes right at the heart of the matter. And finally, you reach the very peak where you validate everything to make absolutely sure it's still good law. You see, you're always moving from broad to specific. So what's the point of all this digging? What are we even looking for? Well, you're not just collecting random facts. You are on the hunt for something very specific, the ideal case, the smoking gun that perfectly nails your argument. Okay, here it is. This is the detective's checklist for that ultimate prize. First is the case on point, meaning does it have facts that are almost exactly like yours? Second, is it binding authority, a decision from a higher court that the judge has to follow? Third, is it recent? Does it reflect the absolute latest state of the law? And the grand prize, is it a leading case, one that literally shaped the law as we know it? Hitting all 4 of those, that is the legal researcher's jackpot. All right, let's move on to the final stage, which is all about putting it together. I mean, finding the clues is one thing, but a detective is pretty useless if they can't organize their evidence and present it clearly, right? This is where you build the case file. So why all the nitpicky, meticulous note-taking? Well, because every single claim you make has to be backed up. A supervisor, a partner, heck, even the judge might look at you and ask, how did you get here?
Show me your work. And your research log? That's your paper trail. It's the proof that your answer is sound and your method was thorough.
And this is what that trail needs to look like. You record absolutely everything. The date you did the research, because laws change, full, perfect citations so anyone can find your sources. You even write down the keywords you used in your searches. Every little detail matters because it's what makes your work defensible, it's repeatable, and it's professional. It is the final and most critical piece of the puzzle.
When you think about it, the law really is a story, one that's been written over centuries. But this isn't just some academic exercise. Legal research is how you learn to read that enormous story and find the one single sentence that solves your client's problem. It's the skill that turns a huge, complex narrative into a clear, actionable answer. And that, right there, is what it means to think like a lawyer.